This is Jason DeBoard with the Original Prop Blog. We're going to do something a little bit different today. I always have a number of news stories that kind of pile up, and sometimes they're smaller news stories, and I never get around to doing a standalone article or YouTube video, so I wanted to try something a little bit different and do multiple stories in the same article and in the same YouTube video. So if you have any opinions on that and want to give me some feedback, I'd appreciate it. If you like it, I'll do more of this. If you don't, maybe I'll just have less content. I don't know, because there's always a lot of little things popping up and I just don't have time to cover all of them independently. So I'm going to jump right into this. Yesterday, Ryan Reynolds posted on his Twitter account about a sword that he's putting up for charity auction from Deadpool. So that's pretty awesome. There's some interesting comments from readers here about said website crashing. Ryan Reynolds says, I think we crashed the site. We still use dial-up in Canada. And that's the thing about this auction is I believe you have to live in Canada in order to participate. And it's more of a drawing than an auction where you buy a raffle ticket and then you have a chance to win based on how many raffle tickets they've sold and how many you've purchased. But it benefits the Ronald McDonald House, British Columbia, and Yukon. They're selling these tickets for $10 each between February 25th and March 1st. And you basically have to live in British Columbia in order to participate. And it says chances are 1 in 2,500. And that's the total number of tickets for sale. So that basically means if someone bought all the raffle tickets, you know, I'm not a math wizard, but I think that's $25,000. So I think there's probably a lot of people that would be willing to just straight up buy this sword if it really is a screen used sword from Deadpool 2. And it is autographed by Ryan Reynolds, and it has a graphic novel that's signed by Rob Liefeld. But there is an opportunity if you want to donate, irregardless of the contest and where you live, you can actually do that as well. So that's that. So on to the next story. I saw this pop up the night of the Oscars on the 23rd about a collector in Texas named Chris Christian, who has apparently a pretty big movie memorabilia collection. I'm going to roll a little bit of this video. I'm not going to play the whole thing.
But we do not have to wait until the Oscars for some, movie magic. Matt Howerton takes us inside one of the most iconic movie memorabilia collections in America, and it's right here in North Texas.
This is the piano.
This collection,
Better known as the Stairway to Heaven guitar. This was made by Lucasfilms.
of movie memorabilia
You know, I got all this.
is so iconic,
Charlie Chaplin days.
so valuable.
At one time.
We can't even tell you where we're doing this interview in Texas.
In any event, I'll put a link in the description and in the accompanying Original Prop Blog article so you can check this out. I also will do the same for the Deadpool auction and everything else that I cover in this video. On to the next item, which is this Eubanks auction taking place on the 28th. You know, I wanted to look at this auction and I clicked on the main page here, and as you'll see, you scroll down and there's not too many items per page, and there's 29 pages of items. And if you click on this show all button, the page refreshes and there's still the same number of items. So if you actually want to look through this catalog, you have to click next 29 times. So that's about as far as I got into looking at this auction. Sorry, I just don't have time to click next 29 times. It's just kind of frustrating that you can't actually see all of the items. So, you know, I've found this to be the case in a lot of auctioneers' websites where they have these buttons to sort or show all, and a lot of times they don't work, or you have to do it a couple times. And I don't know, you'd think they would fix that. So The next story is a local Los Angeles story about the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures and their museum and their efforts to restore an original working model shark from Jaws. Again, I'm going to roll just a teaser of this video. I'm not going to play the whole thing.
Or lost to time. But then one of the Bruces was discovered.
And this shark ended up going off to a junkyard in Sun Valley.
Greg Nicotero is a Hollywood special effects director, but he's also been tasked with restoring this shark, made from the original Jaws molds some 45 years ago.
And this was on display at Universal for probably 15 or 20 years. So when you went to Universal, you could pose with the shark.
But then he was replaced with a more realistic-looking shark.
So in any event, the wording is a little interesting where they say it's from the original molds. I don't know if this was actually used in Jaws or not. But again, I'll put a link in the description. You can take a look at this video in the article. So the next item is a blog post by Scott Fortner of the Marilyn Monroe collection. He's someone whose insights about everything Marilyn Monroe I really have grown to appreciate and respect. He does great research. He has an article here about a Marilyn Monroe dress that's coming up in a GWS auction. He talks about a press release from the auction house stating that they'll be selling a dress that Marilyn Monroe wore when she announced her separation from Joe DiMaggio. And again, I'll put a link in the description, but he has photos from that actual appearance. And then he has an analysis about how the wardrobe piece up for auction differs from what is seen in the photos. And he has a photo analysis here in which he talks about, as you can see, the zipper seems to end in these two photos, but in the item up for auction, it goes much, much further down. And this one in the auction looks like a dress. And he talks about the pieces seen in the vintage photos appearing to be separate pieces. So that's interesting. He said he reached out to GW Auctions press agent and received no response. I did check out to see if this is still listed as active, and it's currently on the Invaluable website. You can see you can still leave a bid. It has an opening bid amount of $20,000. So I'm not a Marilyn Monroe expert. I'm just pointing out what Scott has said here in his blog post and his analysis and photos. And, I just thought it might be of interest to readers of the original prop blog. Next up is a news bit that came up quite a bit on social media and a lot of articles that followed in the last week about Mark Hamill and a, quote, rejected Chewbacca mask. Again, I'm going to roll a little bit of this video just to give you a taste of what was said, and then you can check out the full thing via a link in the description.
What's the most impressive piece of Star Wars memorabilia that you've come across?
Well, George rejected the first Chewbacca mask because he was snarling and he had bared teeth. He said, I don't want that. I want a passive mouth so he looks like a friendly Wookiee. So he gave me the prototype. And that's the key. If you get a prototype, something that's not mass produced, it's always more valuable because it's not meant, for the public. So that's sort of a rare prototype. And I stress to all potential burglars out there, it's not at my house. It's in storage.
Okay, so this started with this tweet by Peter Mayhew with a picture of a young Mark Hamill wearing this Chewbacca mask. And then Mark Hamill tweeted a reply. So in his tweet, he posted a response talking about, as you just saw in that video, that this Chewbacca mask was a rejected prototype that George Lucas gave him because George Lucas didn't want the finished Chewbacca to be snarling. So that's that. And the last little bit I wanted to mention, this is a little bit off topic. Prop Store has a vintage toys and collectibles live auction that's happening this week. And, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, as a lot of people know. And I collected the action figures from the very start. Actually, my very first Star Wars figure was the 12-back Chewbacca, speaking of Chewbacca. So this is a really cool auction if, you know, you're my age-ish, mid-40s. This is like a total trip down memory lane. There's so many cool toys in this catalog. So, of course, there's all these Star Wars toys, which I remember everything on this page. And then you get into more interesting stuff. Like I still have that Han Solo blaster. I remember the inflatable lightsabers. I had so much of this stuff as a kid. Actually, I still do have a lot of this stuff. Unfortunately, not mint in box, but I still have a lot of these pieces. So this is such a comprehensive auction. There's so much stuff. And, you know, it's 185 pages of just craziness. And it's not just Star Wars. They've got other toy lines represented, which is really cool. And it's not just toys. There's actual artwork and prototype material and schematics and different kinds of collectible stuff. I'm just scanning through this really quickly. I had all those large size figures. Very cool stuff. Awesome photography. I totally remember that Spider-Man utility belt. The Mego Spider-Man, I had that. There are some replicas in here, like there's this pulse rifle. So there are some prop replicas kind of mixed in. As you can see, there's some artwork. And a lot of the material, the Star Wars materials from the collection of Howard Kazanjian, which is really cool. He was a producer on some of the Star Wars films. And yeah, just really cool stuff. So this is the first really big toy auction for Prop Store. So it's cool to see them go into this territory. These lunch pails, I had all three of those Star Wars lunch pails. I even have a picture of myself first day of school with that Empire Strikes Back one. Yeah, see, a lot of this stuff is from Howard's collection. There's some Don Post stuff, some Icon stuff, different replicas. Again, cool artwork, some production material. So, cool auction. That was my last news story. Thanks for checking it out. Hopefully this will end up being short and worthwhile. Thanks.